My name is Lieutenant Colonel Steve Lacasse. I am part of the CJ Engineering Directorate, and I'm the ITAG OIC. ITAG is the Infrastructure Training and Advisory Group. It's a new mission we're standing up now to help the Afghan security forces learn to properly maintain their facilities. It's not so much a new command as it is a realization. Everybody knows that shelter is like one of our primary basic needs, and we've been spending a lot of time here in Afghanistan building a lot of facilities for the security forces of Afghanistan. But sometimes you forget that those facilities deteriorate over time, and you need to have a proper maintenance procedures and workers in place to keep those facilities going. So right now we've realized, hey, we spent a lot of money here, we've given them a lot of assets, and it's time to make sure that they can take care of them. 9 is probably okay just because we're getting started, and there's a lot of things we need to do to get logistics and procedures and those kind of things straightened out. Eventually, I would say we would need close to 150, maybe more, once you start talking about a countrywide impact and all of the different sites for both the ANA and the ANP, and making sure that their respective DPWs get the same type of training that we're trying to provide. The things we're doing right now involve a lot of partnering with coalition. For example, the Corps of Engineers has done some work already via contract to help some of the Department of Public Works here in the Kabul area get established and trained. So we've been partnering with them to help get out with their contractor to help supplement that training and validate that training and help the DPWs advance even further. We've gone out to some sites right now just as sort of a preliminary visit, meeting the key players, the Afghan garrison commanders, the Afghan facility engineers and their employees, just sort of to get our feet on the ground and figure out how best to sort of start out with this. So there's a lot of players involved, everything from right up to the MOD, Ministry of Defense, all the way down to your electrician worker out there in the field at the Afghan base. For us on the coalition side, some of the challenges will just be our logistics. Being a new mission, trying to get the people, trying to get the vehicle and transportation issues worked out, translators and interpreters for our craftsmen to go out with their craftsmen and be able to communicate as they're training and advising. For the Afghans, in terms of their DPWs, what we've seen I think mostly is their logistics. We've just seen a couple of their warehouses. I think right now it's difficult for them to obtain materials for the work that they need to do. Otherwise, some of the training that they've received, some of the initial training at a few sites, I think has been pretty good, and they're probably starting to get the idea to be able to do maintenance on their own. They still have a ways to go with that, but I don't see that as a huge challenge. I think we can accomplish that as long as we can accomplish, you know, their financial, their logistics, their materials, and those kind of things to give them the tools to be able to actually perform the work that they've been trained to do. At this point, it's U.S. only because it's so brand new. Right now, the team consists of U.S. Air Force personnel, and then as we get along further, I'm sure we'll be combining, you know, with Navy and U.S. Army folks. And at some point, I think that we would like to be able to try to get the whole coalition involved. That's way down the road right now, to be honest with you. Not sure we're quite there yet. At this point, it's a group of Air Force, U.S. Air Force folks, but you know, greater widespread use of the coalition I think would be great. I know that some of the facility engineers are already being mentored by some of our coalition partners, so it would make sense to have that kind of run all the way through, all the way down to the lowest level. Well, maintenance really runs the whole gamut. Everything from electrical work inside and outside, to maintaining their generators, to keeping things painted, to keeping the windows and doors working, to keeping the pipes flowing. Everything that you would expect at a normal installation back in the States or anywhere else to keep everything running the way it ought to run. I just don't know if they've seen it to this scale, and not knowing too much about you know, what they've had in the past. And you know, things, you can drive downtown, and obviously there's lots of facilities that they have downtown, and they're in varying degrees of maintenance. I think it's in general difficult for them to get a program in place, again with the logistics and to keep trained personnel and materials on hand to do what they need to do. Certainly we've seen a ton of ingenuity already just out there, and I think that's what they've really been relying on in the past, is just ingenuity and creativity, using what it is they have available to them to do the best that they can. And we just hope to build on that, give them more formal training. Now that they've got actual installations here that they're producing, something that's maybe beyond their typical scope, get them to understand prioritization and identifying problems beforehand and getting those fixes done. One of the efforts that's underway right now is to build them, for lack of a better term, a vocational school for the ANSF. What's happening now is that there's pockets of sites that are that the Corps of Engineers has a contract to help train up just that site, perhaps 16 to 20 folks that are on the DPW staff, to give them that basic school knowledge of electrical, carpentry, metalwork, generator maintenance, and those kind of things. So that's getting going, and I think they really need that. I think they need that very basic level of tech school learning, which is slowly coming online now. And then if you start adding that in with some OJT efforts, on-the-job training efforts being done by the contractor, and that we will also pick up, I think then you'll start seeing them being able to do this work independently on their own. Certainly the tech school. The vocational school, I think, is the #1 thing. At this point, at least the ITAG mission, we don't have the capability to provide that initial school training. We are very capable to go out and give them on-the-job training, to take them out to job sites and show them how to fix things and then watch as they fix it themselves. But at this point, we can't take that person right off the street and turn them into, say, an entry-level electrician or an entry-level carpenter. We're just not there yet. So that particular school, that effort, I think, is extremely important to get that going. The second piece, I think, that would be the most important is the logistics system. Obviously, if you need to fix things, if you don't have the materials to do it and you don't have the tools to do it, you're kind of stuck. You can have all the training in the world, but you just won't get to where you need to go. So those, I think, are the two biggest things that they need to really get established in order to pick things up. Right now we don't have any Afghan staff besides our interpreters, and even then those interpreters aren't necessarily just assigned to us. We're kind of using the CJ engineering assets. I think that's going to probably be the greatest limfac in terms of Afghan help, is to get the interpreters for our U.S. forces to use. Now the second piece of that is the contractor who's out there. They are using some Afghan resources. I'm not sure to what extent, but they are using some Afghan resources to conduct some of this training, initial training and on-the-job training. So can't really speak for what they're doing out there, but for us, I think it would be nice eventually to, as we get some of the students who become more and more proficient in their field, to actually see those folks transition into trainers, perhaps for some of the new folks coming in. The way it is right now is that the DPW staff, the leaders of the staff, are military, but then the actual workers and craftsmen themselves are actually civilians, sort of like we would see in our base as a government civilian hire. I guess I would just say that I think my folks are excited for this job. It's a little bit challenging right now, being that it's so new. But this is something that we, at least in the U.S. Air Force and the civil engineering community, this is something that we do all the time in terms of training our own folks who come through, come up from basic training and out of tech school. And so it's kind of exciting to see something like this in another country. We hope we can be a lot of help, and we hope to see the ITAG grow into something that does have a far-reaching impact. I know right now with just our 9 folks we feel a little overwhelmed, but we hope we can get things started, and once the wheels get going, it'll be something that really progresses well. Right now I have to admit the plan is to work with both, but we have mostly been dealing with the Afghan National Army right now, only because The initial contract that's getting through that technical school piece of it has mostly been centered toward the Afghan National Army. That contract is getting ready to be renewed, which is then going to include the Afghan National Police as well later on this year. And once that happens, I think then the ITAG will be able to start getting out to more ANP sites and doing the same things there. But like I said, at this point, without that initial kind of textbook training, it's tough for us to really get in and do too much good.